Our News from the Hill segment tonight. Last week, the House of Representatives voted to repeal the Obama-era Dodd-Frank financial regulations. As with most things, Democrats are giving a measured and rational response, only saying this will cause the collapse of the entire financial system. But while Dodd-Frank was supposed to strengthen our financial system, the results didn't measure up. Watch.
The vote passed. Now what?
We won. The American people won. So hopefully the nightmare of Dodd-Frank will be gone soon. And what we can do is hopefully get capital back into our economy. Too much capital is sitting on the sidelines. And so what we know under Dodd-Frank is the big banks have gotten bigger, the small banks have gotten fewer. Our economy has lagged. It codified too big to fail into law. The House says no. It's going to be economic growth for all, bank bailouts for none.
With me now from the Heritage Foundation, Norbert Michael. Norbert, thanks for being here.
Hi, thanks for having me.
All right, this is an interesting conversation, I think, to have about Dodd-Frank, because what Republicans claim the results of Dodd-Frank have been versus what Democrats claim it's done are two drastically different things. So, Norbert, go through this for me. What was this bill, Dodd-Frank? What did this purport to do when it was passed versus what have the actual results been practically?
Well, it purports to have ended too big to fail and made the financial system safer. And it's very hard to find anybody serious who believes that that's what happened. Most of the conferences that I go to, if we're talking about this issue and you poll the audience and you say, who thinks we've ended bailouts? Nobody raises their hand. This is, if you look at the nuts and bolts of what it did, Dodd-Frank, it codified a lot of the things that were done to bail out and rescue faulty financial firms during the crisis. So it didn't end too big to fail. If anything, it enshrined it.
Listen, then I guess I don't get it then. Why are Democrats still pushing this? I mean, they're claiming that Dodd-Frank didn't go far enough. This is Sherrod Brown. Yeah. He's using this fear tactic. He says this leaves taxpayers vulnerable to another Wall Street bailout. There was a senior editor from Think Progress who actually said that this was the mid-season finale of Planet Earth. I mean, that's not rhetoric that you use when you're trying to create a reasonable compromise here. What's their point? Why are they doing this?
Well, it's ridiculous, and they're very much invested in a false narrative. And that false narrative is that deregulation in financial markets caused the financial crisis. And this is a philosophical dichotomy. I mean, this is just, they're completely different on both sides. The truth of the matter is there was no deregulation in financial markets. We haven't had deregulated financial markets in the United States pretty much ever, certainly not for the last 100 years. And the truth of the matter is the same types of regulations that have been put forth in Dodd-Frank are the ones that have been proliferating for years and years and years, and many of them actually caused the crisis. Many bad policies that led to the financial problems that we had.
All right, so true or false me on this one. Democrats say that repealing Dodd-Frank, if this does in fact pass and is signed into law here, that this would cause another housing crash like 2008. True or false?
Ridiculous. Totally false.
Totally false. Well, there you go. All right, let's go through some of this stuff. This is, I guess, a little bit of the wonky part of this, but this bill that passed in the House, it would allow banks, I guess, that reach a certain threshold of cash an off-ramp for Dodd-Frank. Norbert, translate that for us. What does that mean in everyday American English?
That's close. There are two ways to fund your business. You think of it as your own earnings or your equity or debt. And what this does is it says to the bank, if you fund yourself with more of your own earnings, your own equity, then you get out of regulation.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. And then this also reduces the frequency of federal stress tests. How did that hamper the financial market? Why repeal that?
Well, stress test is one of those things that Dodd-Frank put in place, and a lot of the people on the left will say that it's made us safer. But in truth, it's just an exercise in futility. It's incredibly wasteful, unproductive, and there's very little benefit in place. Firms do stress tests in the sense that they are careful in terms of how they're going to operate going forward all the time. And this is just a pointless top-down regulation that's done nothing but impose cost on people. And
again, I guess this goes back to the politics of the thing, but the federal stress tests or the oversight powers, because the oversight powers in general are going to be rolled back significantly if this bill goes through. They were rolled out in Dodd-Frank. They'll be rolled back now. I mean, what are the Democrats arguing? Can they not see for themselves the practical results that this oversight isn't really doing anything?
Well, they don't, and we constantly go through these sort of arguments up here on Capitol Hill. They believe that you can actually have government regulators come in and make things safe. And the truth of the matter is that 9 times out of 10, that actually makes things less safe. It provides a false sense of security by putting sort of a governmental seal of approval on what's going on, and it's just not working. It hasn't worked in the past. There's no reason to expect it to work now.
No, it's sort of a safety blanket that really doesn't keep you safe. Norbert,